It's now my incredible delight to welcome into today's Leader Lunch Break Jeff Epstein, President and CEO of the Port of Cleveland. In this role, Jeff is leading a vital economic engine for Northeast Ohio, connecting our region to global markets through our port's strategic location on the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Seaway. Through its maritime and economic development finance work, the port supports more than 23,000 jobs and generates more than 7 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars in economic impact each year. And that's no April Fool's joke. Before joining the port, Jeff served as Chief of Integrated Development for the City of Cleveland, where he worked closely with Mayor Justin Bibb to advance equitable community and economic development across the city. He also served in the past as the executive director of Midtown Cleveland and as director of the Health Tech Corridor. Jeff began his leadership journey by earning a law degree at Georgetown University Law Center and a bachelor's degree in public policy from Duke University. CLC is proud to claim Jeff is one of our own as a member of the Leadership Cleveland class of 2016. And with that, I invite all of you to please welcome to today's Leader Lunch Break, Jeff Epstein. Jeff, take it away.
Thanks, Becky, and thanks everybody for joining today. Good to see so many friends and familiar faces and colleagues, and my mother, who's a Leadership Cleveland alum as well. So great to have everybody in the audience. I'm going to run quickly through some slides. I got a brand new port slide deck that is nice and shiny, and I think that'll give you a great overview of who the port is. I think as I've been in this role now for 5 months and change. People know we have a port, but I think not a lot of people understand the complexity and the extent of the organization. So talk a little about who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going, and some of my initial learnings. So with that wind up, let me pop this up and get it into slide view. All right, everybody seeing this? Good. Okay. Starting with history, right? We've had a port since almost the founding of Cleveland. We are a city that was founded on commerce, on our water, and on our lake and on our river. And the port has evolved and developed over time. The port of Cleveland Cuyahoga County Port Authority was founded in 1968 as a joint effort between the city and the county. We are a political subdivision. We are governed by a public board, 6 board members appointed by the mayor and 3 by the county executive. And today, we are a critical economic driver, as Becky mentioned, for the region. And when I talk to people about the port, I kind of break it down in 3 buckets. And I love this slide because it kind of shows the physical connectivity of that work in those buckets that we do. We've got maritime, and we'll talk about that. We do a ton of infrastructure and planning work in the community. Irishtown Bend is a great example of that. We'll talk a little more about that. But we also have a huge development finance role, and this is an area that I really am hoping to grow as we continue here at the port. So we have 145 acres on the waterfront that is our general cargo terminal. And I'll talk a little bit in a minute about what comes in there. And Becky mentioned the numbers, which are really big in terms of the amount of jobs that are supported by activity that happens at the port, by things that come through the port. This includes 2,000 jobs at Cleveland Cliffs, for example, because that steel mill couldn't exist and couldn't work without the work that the port does. We are connected to the world through the St. Lawrence Seaway. This is a series of locks that connects up through Canada. The Seaway just opened for the season. We actually, our first ship of the season is unloading steel in port today, which is really exciting. We also have a bulk terminal out of Whiskey Island. If you've seen these big black piles out there, this is iron ore taconite pellets that come from the northern Great Lakes. They are mined. They come down in vessels and are unloaded in these piles. We have underground conveyors that help mix the 2 piles together to the precise level that Cliffs needs. and then our ore conveyor loads them. And if you see the Sam Law or the American Courage going up the river to Cleveland Cliffs, that is what is going. We do 4 or 5 million tons of iron ore a year that goes up the river to support Cleveland Cliffs. We also, I mentioned, have this general cargo terminal. This is the main terminal that we have at the port when you kind of look downtown from the warehouse district. And we do a bunch of different things here. We do a ton of imported steel, a lot of steel that doesn't fit on containers. So tin plate, metal. Here's some pictures of some rolled steel kind of coming in, and some wire that comes in. The interesting thing about our cargo terminal, so we do that. We do cement. We do liquid bulk. We have some palm oil that comes in from Asia and gets unloaded in rail cars here. We have two train connections, and we have a container business. And we were one of the first American Great Lakes ports to start a container business about 10 years ago. And for a while, we had a regular container service to Europe weekly. There's some interesting challenges around containers. And if you look at overall Great Lakes ports trends, the St. Lawrence Seaway 40 years ago was doing 80 million tons of cargo across all of the ports that service in Canada and US. Last year, they did under 40. And this is increased containerization. And containers are going to coastal ports because they are bigger ships that don't fit through the seaway. So to give you an example, the largest ocean ship that can carry containers is about 24,000 container units. The largest ship that fits through the seaway is about 2,000 container units. And so the economics are really challenging. And this is one of the areas that we're trying to figure out how we can crack, because shipping by sea is a lot more environmentally friendly than shipping by road. To give you another kind of comparison there, that uh, large ship that would come in through the seaway is about 1,000 trucks. Is it would be the equivalent of a fully loaded Seaway Max container ship. Um, we also, and just so everybody knows, in terms of impacts of trends, we are down. We were down last year 33% in steel imports because of tariffs. So that is impacting us here in Cleveland a lot. The area that it is we're seeing growth in, however, is our foreign trade zone. This is a program that we run, and anybody who's importing any goods from overseas into Northeast Ohio can set up a foreign trade zone. We have one down at the port. We also set them up out at businesses. So we have a bunch out at Swagelok, for example. And you can store all of the goods that you're importing in that foreign trade zone and not pay duty on it until you take them out. So you can defer duty. You can also reduce duty if you convert that into a finished good that has a lower tariff. So we've got about 25 or 30 of these across the region, a bunch now that we're getting demand to activate. One of the areas we are growing in and seeing growth is in our cruise industry. This is kind of a rapidly growing and pretty new trend. We had almost 9,000 passengers last year, record year in terms of cruises coming in the Great Lakes. Really looking forward to, we can talk later about the waterfront work when the stadium comes down, having a really much nicer front door for these cruise ships to come into Cleveland. But this is an area we're going to have another record year this year in. We have been investing heavily in our 200 acres on the waterfront. We've put about $200 million in the last decade. Right now, we're in the middle of implementing a Clean Port grant. If you've driven down West 9th Street, you see the big giant warehouse in front of you at the foot of West 9th. We're going to cover that with solar panels. That's going to be enough to power the entire port and have still some to give back to the grid. We're going to have electric charging stations. We're going to have electric crane, forklift, and reach stackers. And this is, the Cleveland Port, and credit incredible amount to to Will and Dave and leaders who've been in the past, is one of the national leaders in sustainable port infrastructure. So we're really excited about rolling that out in the coming years. So that's the very quick maritime overview. Bucket number two is development, and we are kind of an interesting role in development. And this is an image of Flats East Bank, which is a project we help fund. We have a lot of different tools under state law that enable us to help development projects. And I'm going to kind of talk through quickly overview of these. And if you're a finance person or a development person, you'll understand it. If not, it may go a little over your head, but I'll try to simplify as much as I can. Um, we have the ability to issue debt. We're a body of government. We have a rated fund that's rated A minus. That means we can issue debt below 4% for tax exempt projects, in the fives for taxable projects. And so if a development project needs financing, and there is a really good dedicated stream of revenue there, we can have fixed long-term debt that we issue. We do these a lot for TIFs and PACE financing that are on the tax bill. We do it sometimes for corporates. We're looking to grow this. We also have a capital lease program, and you can see the Sherwin building here in the background. This is a program that essentially allows us to enter into ownership and lease back a development project, and that exempts that development project from paying sales tax on construction materials. So for a project like Sherwin-Williams, that's a pretty big gap filler that really helps. We also, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the creative debt structures we're doing, we can own land, we can own parking garages and exempt them from taxes. We can also develop. And we've been using these tools, I would say, generally well. But what I've been really pushing our team to say is, how do we start being more proactive and strategic about using these tools rather than reactive? There's a group of folks who know how these tool programs work, and they come to us all the time, but we're really looking to push the envelope forward. So last year, just to give you an example of our impact, we worked on 17 projects. And that includes the Cleveland Clinic Global Peak Performance Center. We issued $360 million in bonds against $800 million of project costs. This is not insubstantial in terms of the impact that we've had in the community, and I think we're going to continue to look to grow this. Just some examples of the types of projects that we've worked on, and I love the kind of diversity in this slide. We did that capital lease program for Flats East Bank, Warner Swayze, and Sherwin-Williams. We did a bond fund issuance for the Renaissance Hotel, which is now the Hotel Cleveland downtown, for Carriage Company, for Jets FBO out by the airport. We did conduit issuances, so nonprofits like St. Ignatius or US needed access to the bond markets to be able to issue debt, and we helped them with that. So really good string of projects, and that helps not just in real estate, but obviously this creates jobs in our community. So as I've been thinking about how we try to grow this business, I've been thinking a lot, and I mentioned kind of proactive and strategic. What are our big regional priorities that there is already movement on, and how do we kind of get behind those and put wind in the sails of that project, so that we can be a collaborative player working across the ecosystem to grow things. And so, I came from the city. We talk a lot at the city about the Cleveland era, and this idea of our waterfronts, of neighborhood vibrancy with housing and site readiness, with attracting business. So we've been really working closely with the city and a lot of these partners to say, okay, these are the priorities. How do we line up behind them? A couple of examples. Site Readiness Fund is one of the big initiatives out of City Hall, with the goal of acquiring 2,000 acres of disinvested land, bringing it back to life and bringing good jobs. We are actively working with the Site Readiness Fund on a couple levels. One, they've got a major project they're looking at bringing in that's going to take over one of their buildings, bring a couple hundred jobs, potentially have a play with the port to ship out. we're going to take cash off our balance sheet and lend it into that project. We've got some cash that's sitting, and I'm a government entity. I can only earn 2.5 or 3% on it because I have to have it in certain places. And if that money can get out in the community and earn that same return, I'm getting a double return. We are also looking at standing up a structure within our bond fund where we could have 10 or $20 million ready to lend for projects that are ready to come in and activate on site readiness. So, an example of how we're starting to work with our partners on this. Another example is in St. Clair Superior, and I'll talk about Cheers in a minute, but this is an interesting example of, we've made a couple of big infrastructure investments as a port. Irish Town Bend, we just completed, talk about that in a minute. Cheers as well is coming in St. Clair Superior. And so I went to the director of St. Clair Superior, Terry Hamilton Brown. I said, Terry, we're going to make a huge investment in this neighborhood. We want to make more investments. How can we double down on our infrastructure investment by helping the community? And she said, let me think about it. And a week later, she called us back and said, there is this project that could use your help. It's this old Wood Hill Supply building at 55th and Lakeside. There's two female entrepreneurs that are looking to buy it, move their businesses in there. They've got some bank financing, but they got a little bit of gap. And so I said, great. We structured a $300,000 flexible interest loan for those entrepreneurs to fill that capital stack and invest in the neighborhood. And I think we're looking to do more of that type of work where we can have impact. Another example of this, this is East 89th Rising, Tim Trammell's project in Fairfax. I had the privilege of going and being at the ribbon cutting for this when I was at the city. And Garth Woodson, who is one of our VPs here, spoke on behalf of the port. And I realized at that event, this is the first Black developer that the port had financed. And I kind of came in and I was like, that's not okay. We got to figure out. And I dug into why. And some of it is that capital lease program that I mentioned is really complicated, a lot of legal fees, a lot of overhead costs. And so one of the first things we've done here is to work with the team to come up with a streamlined model that can work for smaller projects. And so we are now out looking for a couple of projects to get going because typically that product doesn't work for projects under $10 million. But we are looking to get on to do that. We are also looking at a lot of other ways that we can lean into the housing crisis. There's a couple things working behind the scenes right now that I can't yet talk about. But I think as I close this development finance section, know that we want to be a collaborative partner. We want to work and use our tools. We have an obligation to do that and feel that sense of urgency. So the third and final bucket of what we do is dredging. We've been working on keeping the river channel open since 1947. He's this great picture of Great Lakes dredge. And here's a dredging boat today. Fun fact, 225,000 cubic yards of dredge needs to come out of the river every year and get placed. That would fill Brown Stadium 100 feet high if you put it on the ground there. And so we've been working a variety of creative solutions around dredging and keeping the river open. This is an interesting one. This is a view from the lake looking in the 1970s. Today is the Deck 14 Lakefront Nature Preserve, which is all dredge fill material, is now a great natural habitat and nature preserve, 2.5 miles of trails. Everybody, I think, is familiar with Irish Town Bend. This is kind of a different challenge. This was a hillside that was going to fall into the river if nothing was done. And the team at the port did an incredible job of building a community collaboration around this, raising $65 million, rebuilding the hillside, rebuilding the bulkhead, 200 mammoth piles that stabilize the shoreline. And this is now, our piece is complete. And we have been handed this off to the Metro Parks about a month ago to build this beautiful new park. 14,000 truckloads of dirt came out of this hillside to stabilize, and this is going to be a huge, huge deal for residents of our region. We also do dredge material placement out at Burke Lakefront Airport, and there's been a lot of conversation about the future of Burke. This is one of our dredge placement facilities out there, where actually the dredge that is environmentally clean comes in, gets dried out, goes through the series of canals, and gets reused in fill across the region. And in addition to this, we've got a little bit of a challenge in that the facilities here are going to be full in 2029. We have two other dredge facilities, and we have been working with the Metro Parks, Black environmental leaders, ODNR, a bunch of other partners on a project that will improve what we're looking at here, which is Gordon Park and the East 55th Marina area, an area of town where there is tons of opportunity in terms of land bank lots and creating meaningful change to create Cheers, which is essentially a 20-year solution for dredge placement that has the added benefit of creating community recreational space, waterfront access, and increasing the resiliency of our shoreline. And so we're working with the Army Corps and a bunch of others to kind of get this approved. We've raised $15 million for this project so far. And finally, just a cool little thing we do too that a lot of people don't know about. We run a debris harvesting program where we collect debris out of the river. We've got these two boats, Flotsam and Jetsam, that are run by CMSD students through the Argonaut program. They collect about 300,000 pounds a year. It's equivalent of 10 RTA buses that they pull out of the river every year. Really proud of this program and the way that it helps kind of make people aware of future maritime careers. So I'm going to stop there. That's the port in a very, very quick nutshell, but hopefully you all learned something, and happy to take some questions.
I think we've learned a lot, Jeff, based on the number of questions that have been come flooding in. So let me dive right in. So first question is mine. So you've been in the role less than 6 months. I think you mentioned about 5 months. So I'm curious, given the breadth and the width of and depth of the work that the port does, how do you, as a brand new CEO, how do you prioritize? What have been your top 2 or 3 priorities as you've been getting started?
Great question. I think some of it was just listening and understanding the team, understanding the strength of the team, understanding the complexities of what we do. And I, for those of you who know me, like to move fast. And so that was work for me, just to kind of slow down and listen before we did so much. I think that the second piece to me was really kind of carefully driving alignment around priorities, and really one of my big pushes across all areas is, we have an incredible team. We're a team of 18, so really small team for what we do and the impact we have. But how do we drive more impact? We've been doing all this stuff, and all of us have been doing all this stuff in Northeast Ohio. We're still not growing. We have all the economic challenges that we see. How can the port play a more active role? How can we push even more for impact? So I think those are the two things that are driving. We're about to launch into a strategic plan as well that I think is going to help us really identify additional future paths for us to do more.
I love it. As a strategic plan junkie, I can't wait to see that. You mentioned the impact that tariffs have had on the steel industry. I think you said about a 33% decrease in the last year in steel. Are you seeing tariffs impacting other port activity?
No, it's been mostly that, and that in foreign trade zone. So we'll see how things play out. I think it was at an event last night, and not tariffs, but the war and rising fuel costs, I think is going to be another interesting thing to figure out as companies are trying to plan for shipping and have deep uncertainty about costs. So we'll see how all that plays out.
So you mentioned the cruise line business that we've been seeing, that appears to be an opportunity for growth. One of the questions relates to the American Cruise Line saying that they needed to shift to Buffalo in 2026 because Cleveland didn't have the right "quote unquote" docking station situation. Are there any plans in the work to make those changes so that we can get American Cruise Line and other lines back into Cleveland?
So the honest on American Cruise Line has had nothing to do with docking situation. It had to do with their absolute refusal to talk at all about using the union here. And it was frankly a very small number of ships, very small number of dockings, and it wasn't worth the fight.
Fair enough. I love a direct answer. Another question. Do you envision all electric cargo ships becoming a norm over the next 7 to 10 years, if not sooner?
I would love to see that, and I think we'll be really well positioned. This is another area where the rest of the world is moving very quickly in this direction, and the United States is continuing to lag further and further behind. We are going to build through the work we're doing on the Clean Port Grant, the ability to have shore power to power up and charge electric vessels that come in. The other piece I forgot to mention, we are working on all electric tugboats through a partner that at Great Lakes Towing that actually does shipbuilding here in Cleveland. So yeah, I think that's an area we'll be well positioned for, when that starts to happen.
Great. As the lakefront continues to evolve in a post-Browns Stadium universe, how are you balancing physical development with demand creation? Specifically, what targeted industries, experiences, or user segments are you prioritizing to ensure sustained activation rather than episodic use?
That's a great question with a lot of different layers. How long do we have? Let me answer that in a couple of different ways. I think one, activating our lakefront for more use, I think is really exciting and a generational opportunity that we all have. And I think everybody is really aligned around that. I think from a port perspective, I think we're really excited about the ability to bring more density and development down right next to us so people can see what it is that we do. And I think the authenticity of having a working port right next to what will hopefully be a dense development where the stadium once stood is really exciting for us. I think the we're at a unique point in terms of development demand and growth and density here, where we need more population growth and business growth to be able to drive development demand. But I think a lot of us believe that creating better waterfront access is going to help drive that demand. And so I think really being creative about making sure that as we're working on new development on the waterfront and opening up access, we're not doing things that are just moving things around, but that they are going to be additive for the area. I think it's one of the things, the reasons why we're leaning in so much around site readiness fund and some of the business direction work that the city is leading. And as well as, to me, thinking about, and I didn't mention this in my talk, but the fact that we have this huge freshwater port and we have massive capacity to grow it, how can that be a lever for us to attract more business to Cleveland and to help businesses that are here grow?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions around to follow up on this intersection of industrial use with public access and residential access. A couple of questions coming up about increasing the number of slips that might be available for personal watercraft use, and where that residential sort of thought comes in terms of citizens gaining access, residents gaining access to the water.
Yeah, so on the port proper, we don't have any residential slips. We're not going to have any residential slips. I know that's been part of the conversation in planning at the city on the former stadium land, as well as thinking about future uses at Burke. So I think that is a huge opportunity in our downtown. And to me, I think the more that we can touch the water and give people opportunities to touch the water, the better. I mean, the Bedrock projects are so exciting. I mean, there's going to be a kayak launch down there on the river. We have spent generations blockading ourselves from our waterfronts, and I really do think this is going to be transformational opportunity, and people are going to want to live there.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I will. Second to last question. Does access to bond funds include airports? Some airports in Ohio are also political subdivisions, and they are sometimes excluded from port bonds.
Um, yeah, I mean, in theory, we could issue debt for airports. I know, Cleveland Airport, for example, has the ability to issue their own bonds, and frankly, the scale that we operate on our bond fund is typically like $10 million or less per project. So if you're looking at a major airport thing, I think Cleveland Airports probably has a better bond rating than we do. So.
I love it. Okay, last question, Jeff. You've got almost 100 people joining us live today. I'm curious, what can the civic leaders that are on this call right now do to support the port going forward?
You know, a lot of things. One, tell everybody else, we got a great port and all the different types of things that we do. I think a lot of people don't know. Second, and I'll make sure we get this out to the Leadership Center, we're going to have an open port day this summer. We're going to open the port up for people to come through for tours. So come down and check that out and see it. And if there are ways that you think that we can help your organization or projects in your community or neighborhood, let us know. We'll let you know yes or no whether we can. We'll be creative. One of the most exciting things about being here is we got an incredible team. We move fast, and we're really, I think our team is really good at what we do.
Yeah, clearly. Jeff, let me just say thank you. You've got a lot of fans in the audience, including classmates from the best class ever, class of 16. It is
Woo!
incredible visionary leadership that you are bringing to the port and to our region. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to share this. We'll send an email out after today's conversation that has a link to the dialogue today. It'll also be on social. Friends who are joining us, help us push it out. This story needs to go far and wide. Thank you, Jeff, for making time for us today.
Thank you all for joining with me.